promotion keeps prices down far more effectively.
As long as suffering of sentient beings remains, I will remain in order to serve.
I imagined God like my grandfather.
In conversation tonight, my guest is a distinguished civil servant. He holds a unique record of, at the age of being not yet quite 19, being appointed a lecturer in political science at Bihar University, where he had already won a gold medal, first class first. He has a postgraduate degree from Oxford University, has won the Jawaharlal Nehru Fellowship, spent a year at Queen Elizabeth House at Oxford, has held several distinguished positions as a member of the civil service, which he joined in 1964. He's been an additional secretary in the Ministry of Environment and Forests, Secretary of Culture, served extensively in various capacities in the Northeast, and is today India's Home Secretary. I'm delighted to welcome Mr. B P Singh. Mr. Singh, you joined the civil service in 1964. Nehru had just died, and India was in some state of despair. What prompted you, with your distinguished academic record, to go into the civil services?
You see, I was born and brought up in a village, and subsequently I came to Patna University for higher studies. And in Patna University environment those days, the civil service was considered to be very, very important. And I had a gentleman who was my predecessor as a lecturer called Ramaswamy Mani. He had done his MA from Harvard University, and he came and became a lecturer in Patna University and then joined the civil service. So it was in that environment and also the social background that we looked up to the civil service as the best profession. And you mentioned about Panditji. In fact, it was a coincidence. In the early hours of the morning, I was woken up by a friend from the press that your name has come on the PTI's news that you have been selected for the IAS. And in the afternoon, Nehru died. So when I was going back to my village, there was a huge crowd of people in the afternoon that day who were mourning Nehru's death. Nehru was one person who had greatly influenced me and people of my generation, along with Mahatma Gandhi. So it was a mixed feeling that day of having got the joy of getting into the IAS. And later in the day, getting the sad news.
In what ways were you inspired by Nehru and Gandhi? In some ways, two very different people.
Yes, yes. You know, Gandhi, because my grandfather started national school in 1920s under the influence of Mahatma Gandhi. And the eminent Hindi poet who hailed from a village near my village, Ramdari Singh Dinkar, used to be his student. And my father had given up his shoes when Gandhi was fasting and lived for the next 50 years without shoes. And he was an ascetic himself. And somehow or that whenever I thought of Mahatma Ji, I largely related it to my grandfather and his values. So this was a very different kind of experience. Whenever I was in his company, I thought I was in the company of somebody who has been inspired by
What about Nehru?
Nehru was something totally different. I was really enamored of Nehru, the way he spoke, the way he talked to the people of India. And I was so much influenced by him that I remember both as a student and as a lecturer in Patna University. After Nehru had finished his public speech, I will repeat it, and I used to be right to the extent of 70 to 80%. That was Nehru. There was something magnetic about him. There was something, something which was appealing to you.
Tell me, you're a son of Bihar in a sense, and you've served extensively in Assam. They are both troubled states
Yes.
in many ways. And through your distinguished career in the civil service, do you feel a sense of despair? What kind of impact do you feel you might have made?
You see, this has been one of the greatest sorrows of the service life. When I entered Assam, Assam was a beautiful place. It is not so today. When I left Bihar to join the IAS, Assam was a mind-driven society. You could argue for hours. Today you feel that we have degenerated, the seat of great civilization, the seat of great empires. And this is sometimes, as you rightly said, cause of despair. But both in Assam and in Bihar, I have had occasions, and I do get even now, talk to the common people. And that gives you the sign of hope, that everything is not going to be wrong, that even if the snow has fallen and you are shivering in the cold, the light of the sun is going to come, you feel, and going to warm up these societies. And that hope that common people give you, that great cultural strength that you see, the great pride in being an Indian, the great civility from the common people, that gives you hope and confidence.
You're a scholar and an academic also, apart from your work as a civil servant. What do you think? Let's just look at the Northeast. We all have, most sort of journalists and academics have theories as to what went wrong. Neglect from the center, infusion of refugees, the whole complex of possibilities. What do you feel are some of the factors that are responsible for the crisis in the Northeast?
Three things are very important. One has been the massive migration of population from the erstwhile West Bengal, now Bangladesh. The second has been too much of money in that region, which the society cannot absorb. And the third has been that somehow or the other the policies that we have pursued initially
From the center?
From the center, initially, were very attractive. The policies of one person, one vote, which deepened the democratic system in the Northeast, in a tribal society. The policy of allowing the people to develop according to their own genius. But along with this, and too much of money, we have had instruments of exploitation. And this is done largely through the business houses and civil servants, politicians colluding with those business houses. And insurgency was a byproduct, because the young boys and girls felt they don't have the skills for those jobs, and still they wanted to have a say. So it was largely driven by greed for money. And then the money started flowing in.
Where is this money coming from?
From the planned funds that we give. So a cycle has come. The only state which has broken that cycle in a very decisive way is Mizoram. And Mizoram is a land of peace, because there what has happened, that the youth again has taken for conservation, has insisted upon purity of the electoral system. And today Mizoram is one state in the country where the elections are least expensive. You can manage an assembly poll, a candidate can manage by spending 5,000 rupees. While Nagaland is the most expensive electoral system, because there the corruption is so inbuilt in the electoral process that it will be not less than a few millions that you have to spend for contesting an assembly election.
Beyond the sort of the law and order aspect, which does come under your purview as Home Secretary, what are the kind of initiatives that you feel, with your vast experience of Assam and in the Northeast, would make a decisive difference? What would you recommend?
You see, a strong policy is necessary, because it is only when you pursue a very strong policy that these insurgent groups come to you for talks. And I would recommend that, and I'm working on that for Manipur, and also for Assam, and also for Nagaland. But the situation in Tripura is different, because through the democratic process, the local tribals have become a minority because of the massive migration, and the power has passed on from their hands, political power I mean, and thereby economic power, from Autochthons to the migrant Bengalis. And that area we will have to have a different kind of policy. And I am impressing upon the state government, and they are quite sincere about it, in not having only a pure, strong arm approach, because then the boys will not come for discussion. But in these three places it is possible.
You know, the state of Bihar, going back to your home state, with such a rich tradition of intellectual vigor and culture, what do you think are some of the factors that have been responsible for the chaos, in a sense, that prevails in
Bihar can be restored, according to me, within 2 years. Bihar has not gone that bad.
What would it take?
You have to create an administrative apparatus which is responsive to the basic governance, that is a restoration of rule of law. And once that is done, within 2 years you will find that the Bihar goes up. Because the people of Bihar are extremely hard-working, but the education process has been dismantled. In 50s and 60s, when we had a good system of administration in Bihar, there was vast social mobility. People from rural areas, I myself one of them, they moved on to the best positions. But today what has happened, that the social mobility has come to a halt. Only children of rich middle class and above can educate their ward, and then they will occupy good positions. So Bihar is seemingly a hopeless case, but intrinsically it has the merit to get back to the mainstream of national life. If we could restore the rule of law in about 2 years' time, I'm quite hopeful about that.
You know, you're in the Home Ministry, which is one of the most politically sensitive jobs that a civil servant could have. What has been the relationship? We frequently feel that the professional bureaucracy has been unduly interfered with by the political processes. What do you see as a relationship between the bureaucracy and
In some of the states, the things have become very bad. They transfer district magistrates every 6 months, every 4 months. They transfer a speech in that manner. The result is that nobody takes pride in his job. If even today somebody asks me, what were the best positions that you held, I will go to my SDO days and to the district days. Now, this was possible because we had a 2-year tenure. And we knew that this is my responsibility. We took a lot of pride in doing things in a manner. And the people look up to you. This is one job where the people look up to you. This has been a great casualty. We are trying to restore it in the police system and also in the civil service. We have had a series of conferences with the chief ministers. Now there are proposals to have the civil service and police service boards to regulate transfers and postings. People are very reluctant to give up this power, and this has been an area of concern. And I don't see a movement taking place in the country among the politicians to restore the civil service autonomy to that extent.
In what ways do you think the demands on the civil service have changed The process of administration has become increasingly complex, more sophisticated, more specialized. Is there still room for a generalized Indian administrative service?
You see, when I was deputy commissioner, that was more than now 25 years, I thought I was accountable to the poor people. And I had a very distinguished police officer who, when they told me that, look, we have to look after these city fellows. And I had a lot of quarrel. I said, I have nothing to do with your philosophy. Today the poor people don't count. You feel you are accountable to a group of politicians. But the system of hierarchy had broken down. A district officer was never feeling that he was accountable to his commissioner or to his chief secretary. That had happened before. He felt that he was more accountable to the chief minister. That had happened in my time also. But today what has happened, that you don't feel accountable to the poor. Now, we never felt that we were accountable to the MLAs and the MPs, not at all. And MLAs and MPs thought many times, or people of there many times before approaching us. But today that is not true. And this has been a big change. And this change process, I'm not seeing it getting reversed.
Would you say that the bureaucracy does need more specialized skills, and we have now begun sort of bureaucratic is a negative word, to say the least, as a pejorative. Why is the bureaucracy bureaucratic? Is it something that's inherent in being a bureaucrat?
Not because of that. You know, it depends upon the type of job that you do. When I was culture secretary, I felt every scholar or every creative artist was a member of the Department of Culture. And I had no problem. They never abused it, and I gave them all the authority. I can't do that as Home Secretary because it is not possible for me to do that. But we have created all kinds of structural difficulties in our work, and that makes it very, very bureaucratic. You know, every department must have some innovative ideas how to deal with these procedures. I had relaxed those procedures in culture. I find it difficult to relax it here because of the secrecy involved in what you do. But it is possible for the senior civil servants acting in concert with their political executives to change this.
You know, you did a book, India's Culture, the Arts, and Beyond. Again, in a liberalizing economy where there is less and less money available for the arts.
Yes.
What role do you really see for the state playing in the arts? We normally perceive this as sort of merely the patronage of favorites.
I must tell you, because I was writing this book was largely guided by a philosophy, which again was developed by me. I felt that in the closing years of the 80s or in the beginning of 90s, there was a policy shift, and that military, which was the most determining factor in placing a nation in the committee of the world, suddenly ceased to be the primary factor. It remained a major factor, but it yielded place to market, trade, technology. And my theory is that culture is going to emerge very rapidly as the third important factor. So it is market, military, and culture. And since and all of us know, India is a highly civilized country that way. It has very high cultural attainments. More than 100 people even today in their respective realms of creativity are the best in the world, maybe more than 100, maybe more than few hundred. Now I then felt that what the state should do. And when I was looking back, I found that Pandit Nehru, Rajendra Prasad, Radha Krishnan, Maulana Azad, they were very clear in their mind that the state's job is to create an environment, create an infrastructure in which the creative minds could find their expression, because there was no market. The market was deficient to provide that. So in areas where market continues to remain deficient, the state should get it. And this has to be from that angle.
How does the state do this without imposing or encouraging its own ideology?
You see, the ideology that this country has got is not written in a book. Of course, the Constitution expresses that ideology. But it is largely in your heritage. And the heritage as represented and given to the people during the freedom struggle.
But it varies from the party in power.
Yes, I see your point. And also in the early years of the Republic. Now, it is very difficult for even a political party, because I have worked under different governments of different types, and I have worked in positions which have given me a lot of proximity to the top people of different political parties. And there is a problem of devising a new way, because a way is not easily devised, and you can't go against heritage. And that is the problem we are facing if you look at it from this angle in Pakistan, because they thought that they will create a new culture in 50 years based on some religious feelings or religious texts or scriptures, and they are baffling what to do, because this is something which is very, very serious. Yes, there are certain symbols which you can emphasize. One party can emphasize more than the others. But that also we are having difficulties in this country, and rightly so, because the symbols are also important in culture. And the state's intervention in changing the symbols will be registered by the people. So this is a good thing in a democracy, that you can't do in India, because democracy has taken roots in the same manner that you can do in Pakistan or in Bangladesh or elsewhere.
Singh, as a bureaucrat of a secular country, but what personal or what space is there for a bureaucrat to have his own philosophy, his own ideology, his own political convictions?
You see, look at this country. The recent study has shown that we have 4,653 communities, ethnic groups in this country, having their own value systems, belief patterns, and even the way they do economic activities or professions. Now, a bureaucrat, according to me, must understand this cultural pluralism, this great variety in India, and he must support that in the secular country. The other thing is that, as Paul Appleby said very clearly, that as a senior civil servant, you can't do politicking. But as a senior civil servant, you must understand politics. Now, any civil servant who goes beyond the understanding of politics into the realm of politicking, I feel that he should quit and go. But he must understand. And this is necessary in a democracy. It may not be necessary at the junior levels, where you can largely go by the textbooks or by traditions. But at senior levels, civil service neutrality does not mean that you do not know the name of political parties or the names of political leaders and why they act in a manner that they are acting. You have to understand that.
You're saying in the remaining years of service, you're at the helm of the administrative service and where a bureaucrat can go to. Only a few possibilities. Beyond this, what are your ambitions and dreams for yourself?
Look, I have been raised to this level by sheer coincidence. Hardly been any design. Because one thing I have done, that I have pursued both my journey in some kind of a scholarship and a more clear journey in the civil service. I'm fully satisfied. But I have some things to do. I'm still longing for getting some time to write a couple of more books. And then also I want to go back to my village, and from there I want to go at least for 3 months in a year to each school of my district where I am known by name, and talk to the boys of high school and share with them my experiences. These are some of the ambitions after the service.
Singh, thank you very much.